First off, I want to give a disclaimer by saying I'm recording this in a closet, so if it sounds awful, let me know. This part is not nearly as important as the others, so that is why it's a 0.5 rather than being a full part. I think I already explained that in the last video. Last time on What If Toribot joined the Z-Fighters, Toribot, Goku, Yamcha, Roshi, and Krillin ventured off to gather the Dragon Balls. First they took a detour to revive Bora for additional help since he's a lot stronger in this continuity, and then they met Yajirobe. He was reluctant to give over his Dragon Ball until finding out Toribot can make almost anything conceivable to the mind. In a last-ditch effort, King Piccolo deployed the Pilaf gang in their mechs, as well as 4 new children: Flute, Laylee, Yuka, and Obo. And they were also pretty poorly drawn, let's not focus on that. It was a fierce battle, with Roshi even being severely injured, but once Toribot was able to overclock himself again, the Dragon Team pulled through. And now they're on their way to continue gathering the Dragon Balls. But the Dragon Team are not the ones we are focusing on in this part. No. This part focuses entirely on their now sworn enemies, the Demon Clan. With that being said,
grab some evil chips, some evil water, go find somewhere evil to sit, and prepare for mayhem.
You like that? I have the ability to do that if I want to, so I apologize for doing that, but, it had to be done. Back on King Piccolo's ship, the Demon King himself has his eyes glued shut as he peers through those of his children. He oversees their battles with the pitiful humans, those martial artists, and Toribot. Oh, wait, Toribot? Damn, it looks like the 3 before just completely failed their mission. Well, no, King Piccolo had seen through Drum's eyes the destruction they'd caused, so what's the deal with that? Didn't they rip his head off or something? Dear Deborah, were there more? A whole army of Toribots out there to challenge the Demon Namekian army? He should certainly hope not, because then he bears witness to Toribot giving Obo death by 1,000 cuts. Grimacing, he opens his eyes again. That's pretty much it. If Obo's dead, there's no hope left for his children. If an army wouldn't work, then King Piccolo would have to become his own. It's clear that fighting those martial artists may result in death, or even worse, being sealed away again. No, he can't have any part of that. An idea occurs to him. He would have simply used the Dragon Balls for his youth anyway so that he could become strong again, but what if there was another way? What if King Piccolo got his youth back? Well, that wouldn't be a what if since he already does that in canon. King Piccolo cocks his head to the Pilaf gang. Yes, they seem to know their stuff when it came to mythology, especially considering King Piccolo himself was supposedly just a legend to the people of the Dragon World. People legitimately believed him to be a fairy tale, but no, not at all. In the flesh. He asks them one simple question. If he can't get the Dragon Balls, what else can he do to regain his youth? The Pilaf gang start whispering to each other, though King Piccolo understands all of it. They break from their huddle and inform him that there are 2 options. They could either get the Paradise Herb, or they could try and track down an Eternal Phoenix. The Paradise Herb would simply allow King Piccolo to keep his current age. The same comes for the feathers of most Eternal Phoenixes. However, legend has it that the feathers of the matriarch of those said phoenixes are even more powerful than those of her offspring, perhaps even powerful enough to restore his youth. However, they may encounter one problem. The only way to obtain a feather from her willingly is to either have a heart of pure good or to best her in battle. King Piccolo laughs it off, unimpressed. No phoenix could possibly defeat him, even in his elderly state. He commands the Pilaf gang to get their backup mechs up and running. They have business to take care of. But then he realizes he has no idea where they live, so he instructs Pilaf to go pilot them to the island. It only takes them an hour or so to get to the island. In the background, the Dragon Team are gathering the Dragon Balls. They have the 4-star ball, the 1-star ball, the 3-star ball, and all things considered, that's more balls than they had in canon. Now that King Piccolo and his clan have arrived on Phoenix Island, they're ready to take what they believe is theirs. King Piccolo floats down from the ship, followed by the Pilaf gang mech. Phoenix Island is a mostly flat island, though there are beaches there as well. It's what you would typically see in a movie about people getting stuck on an island. The difference is that, in the center of the island, there exists a tribe of largely sized phoenixes. They live in stone huts. The general center of the island is rather hill-ish, so the huts are kind of lopsided, but they are big enough to house the phoenixes. In the center of the center, which I'm not sure if that's an oxymoron or not, there exists a very, very large cave where the matriarch of the Eternal Phoenixes resides. Now, okay, I am making this all up for the story. Not the existence of the phoenixes, because that is canonically how Roshi gains his eternality from one of their feathers, and then he gives it food poisoning and then they die. But, the island is the part that's made up, and the matriarch of the phoenixes is the part that's made up. And you might question that, but I'm using this as an avenue to bring in something from a franchise that Mr. Toriyama apparently did like from its cameos in Dragon Ball. The Phoenix is also in part an attempt to explain where they're from, and the whole island, islands are kind of cool. And most importantly, actually, this is to make it so King Piccolo won't immediately die the second they breathe on him. King Piccolo clears his throat really loudly and annoyingly. "At Phoenix Island, where the birds at? Demon want feather." The ground starts to shake, and then the hills. Then the cave. Strangely, it sounds like there's some really ominous music playing in the background. Pilaf tells Shu to turn off his personal radio, but it's not him. It's not Mai either. And Pilaf would have known if it was him. No, it has to be coming from somewhere else. A whole band of phoenixes flies out of the cave playing their instruments. No, really. The shaking of the cave becomes even more intense. No, wait, it might be too much. The cave is crumbling even more, collapsing in on itself. Just before it completely dissolves, King Piccolo feels like he sees a giant red bird. A few seconds pass in silence. What, did the matriarch seriously just kill herself? How pathetic! But now how could he possibly get his... The wing of the phoenix shoots out of the rubble. The whole island shakes as she emerges, climbing her way out. Oh! She's massive. King Piccolo orders the Pilaf gang to fire their missiles at her, to blow her head off immediately. As commanded, they fire their weapons. Glaring down at them, she swipes a single wing in front of her body to protect herself. They swerve back towards the Pilaf gang, hitting them dead on and exploding. The missiles don't damage the mech, but they shake it, and a cloud of smoke erupts in front of them. King Piccolo rushes out of the cloud to attack the phoenix. He tries to bring his hands down on her head, but she blocks with her massive wing, blowing him away with the other. He manages to gain stability in the air, using his levitation to do so. He shoots 2 key lasers from his eyes, piercing her wing. The phoenix roars in annoyance more than pain, as despite the damage dealt, she was massive enough not to be truly affected. Yes, her wing had been shot straight through, but the holes were so small compared to her wing that it truly didn't matter. She looks up to him, opening her beak, unleashing a sonic wave to blow him higher into the air. Looks like King Piccolo is blasting off again. The Pilaf mech rushes out from the cloud of smoke as well, tackling shoulder first into the phoenix. She is unmoved by their effort, bowling them over with her undamaged wing. They spin and jump back to their feet, grabbing one of the stone huts to toss at the Eternal Phoenix. While she protects her body with her wings, it still deals some damage to her. The whole island is enchanted after all. With the Phoenix on the defensive, the machine gun on Mai's machine arm is activated. They spray a barrage of bullets at her, to no effect. While these are no ordinary bullets, in fact, being reinforced and coated with solid silver, we are so far past the point of any kind of bullet having any effect. Shut up, super doesn't count. Shu follows it up with a blast of fire from his mech's flamethrower, though this doesn't do anything either. She's a phoenix. They're immune to fire? Thusly, she spreads her wings, looking down at them and unleashing another sonic wave. It completely negates the effects of the fire, even going as far as to push it back inside of Shu's mech. As such, he deactivates the flamethrower. But with the Phoenix open, Shu fires a missile, which actually hits her dead on in the stomach. The Phoenix looks shocked for a moment, looking down at her slightly singed feathers. Next, he fires lightning from the hands of his mech at the area of effect. Bars. The Phoenix bats them away, but just then the Phoenix lands on her stomach. What's this? King Piccolo had nailed her with a flying kick from above. With the Phoenix on her stomach, he goes to pick a feather. She quickly rolls over onto her back, trying to bite King Piccolo. He reels back, unharmed, but that was too close for comfort. He opens his palms, shooting a Mako-sen out at her eye. The blasts connect successfully. The Phoenix cries out in pain, with King Piccolo yet again grabbing hold of one of her feathers. He tugs once, twice, 3 times, and on the 3rd attempt he retrieves the feather. The Pilaf gang, in their combined mech, roll back up to their feet. King Piccolo cocks his head back to the ship, pointing out the feather in his hand. The Pilaf gang immediately understand, rushing over him back to base. But the Phoenix slowly starts to rise again. The rage she feels at the loss of her eye, it couldn't even be described. Her beak open, golden light comes out from her mouth. Yes, if she couldn't have her feather, that demon and his goons certainly wouldn't be able to either. A massive blast rockets out from her throat, hitting the ship dead on. King Piccolo yells for Mai and Shu to get the mech onto the hull to protect them, and they oblige. Pilaf starts the ship back up. Looking down at the feather, King Piccolo has to wonder, why isn't it working? He yells this inquiry out to Pilaf. Pilaf looks back with his head over his shoulder. He tells King Piccolo that he needs to stab himself with it. Why? Because it won't work any other way. Well, unless he wants to eat it, that is. King Piccolo eyes the feather for a moment, then Pilaf, then the feather, then Pilaf, then the feather, and then following Pilaf's advice, he stabs himself with it. Yet, instead of feeling pain, he feels bliss. Yes, this is wonderful, isn't it? The power now flowing through his body, his skin stretching back into place, his muscles redeveloping. Yes, this is all he's ever needed. His youth has returned to him once more. Now he's telling Mai and Shu to move out of the way. Move? Why? Well, they'll see. Slightly concerned, they still proceed to move out of the way. Through the hole in the ship, King Piccolo shoots out another Mako-sen, piercing the Phoenix's chest. With no more opposition to deal with, they... Oh, all the tinier Phoenixes are trying to chase after them now. Well, that doesn't matter. While Pilaf flies away, King Piccolo would shoot down each Phoenix with as precise a blast as possible, killing some but injuring far more. It's more useful to keep them alive. Once he has a full army's worth of children, he'll be able to give them all eternal youth. And so, with his own youth in hand, they're ready to enact King Piccolo's plan. The 4 of them, and also Piano, will swarm King Furry's castle and begin their reign of terror on the world. They'll kill all resistance, even the king if they have to. And then, once they're unopposed by the government, they'll become its new masters. At that stage, King Piccolo will give birth to several more children. Then they'll turn the king's army on those pesky martial artists, and, if all goes right, strike them down once and for all. If not, put them in their places and force them into his army as slaves. With Pilaf piloting them away, this is exactly what they plan to do. They'd arrive at King Furry's castle during the night. This would be to prevent any intervention at all by those martial artists. Guards in the vicinity would take notice of the ship flying so close to the castle and begin to alert the more involved army personnel. Pretty soon there'd be a whole platoon assembled to deal with the demonic interlopers. The hatch opens at the bottom of the ship, with the merged Pilaf gang mech slowly floating back down to face the army. Before the mech can even touch down, the army opens fire on them. They get hit with a massive barrage of bullets, as well as tank artillery and missiles. The missiles explode onto the Pilaf mech, and yet they deal no damage. The bullets harmlessly ricochet off the mech, flying in every which direction, as does the artillery. The Pilaf mech simply continues to walk forward through the onslaught of weaponry. As it gets closer and closer to those around it, the normal would fall back, with the tanks taking precedent. The Pilaf gang would simply pick up the tanks and toss them at the soldiers. It was pretty clear that these people weren't going to stand down from the second they'd started their assault on them, and as such, the Pilaf gang feel no remorse for the lives they take during this invasion. The tanks continue to press an assault against the mech, however it's too durable, and more importantly, too strong for them. You know how Z Broly picked up Paragus in his attack pod and literally crushed him to death? That's the same kind of situation that the soldiers in the tanks face. Admittedly, the conventional weaponry of the Pilaf gang isn't too much stronger than the Royal Army's, which is why they're using the appendages of the robot instead. Slowly but surely, they'd continue to crush down each and every tank and defeat their attackers with ease. That leaves only those at the missile launchers, and they're quickly dealt with when the Pilaf gang use their Gatling gun to blow up the missiles before they can fire. At this point, we'd see the big guy who fought King Piccolo come out to challenge the Pilaf gang. And while I do believe that guy might actually be kinda strong, I mean, look at him, maybe 21st Tenkaichi Budokai levels at most, that's not enough right now. The man swoops into battle against them, and he's actually doing a good job, all things considered. The Pilaf gang might actually lose here. However, when he's off guard, he gets hit with a double I-beam to the chest. He falls to the ground, heart-pierced. King Piccolo saved them. In a nonchalant but subtly smug manner, King Piccolo points out how none of his children would have had any trouble beating them, neither past nor future. Pilaf acknowledges this, forcing Mai and Shu to bow their mechs alongside him in apology. He'd laugh it off, though. Even with their failure, he'd still have usage for them. They could help him grow accustomed to this world again, being from this time. But that's of little consequence now. They've got a castle to raid. King Piccolo takes the lead, busting down the doors to the castle. Some of the king's soldiers had fled inside during the conflict, and while those who tried to attack King Piccolo were put down, those who knew their places were ignored. The demonic army marches up the steps of the tower, meeting King Furry in his office. King Furry only has a couple guards left at this point, and they open fire upon King Piccolo the second he steps in. Their fates are sealed swiftly with precise I-beams from King Piccolo. King Furry sits at his desk, uncomfortably fearful. He gulps as King Piccolo approaches him, beginning to wax lyrical about how nice it'll be to take his rightful place as King of Earth. King Furry flips up a hatch on his desk, displaying to them all a big red button. He tells King Piccolo that if he and his bunch don't stand down right this moment, he'll press the button and launch a nuke that'll send everyone in West City straight to Otherworld. King Piccolo laughs. As if a nuke would really stop demons like them. Pathetic. As if. The Pilaf gang? Maybe. Probably. Yeah. Oh, okay, yeah, they would probably die from a nuke, but King Piccolo? And you might find this strange, but yeah, King Piccolo totally could survive a nuke. Keep in mind that Jackie blew up the moon, and yet Master Roshi, who allegedly has the same power as him, wink wink, wasn't strong enough to beat King Piccolo alone. Pretty notably, the moon is bigger than the radius of a nuke, so destroying the moon is a much greater feat. King Furry continues threatening to fire off the nuke. Piccolo simply finishes him with an I-beam. That's what he gets for blabbering. This display actually freaks Shu out a little bit, although he doesn't vocalize it. King Piccolo picks the desk up, tossing it out through the wall and putting a hole in it. Next, he'd throw King Furry out as well. Or, well, the former King Furry, I should say. He'd then order the Pilaf gang to go get his chair from the ship and bring it inside. Mai salutes him using her mech's arms, yet they don't move. King Piccolo clears his throat, snapping Shu out of his trance, and relays his order. Shu, startled, complies, starting to move the mech's legs again. It's terrible, isn't it? A king so willing to kill another animal person like that? Well, okay, humans are animals too, but that's semantics. It's enough to get under Shu's skin, not in an angering way, but in a horrifying way. Like, what if Shu's next? What if he were just to slightly annoy the Demon King, and what if he'd respond by killing him? Yeah, those are pretty bad scenarios. What if Shu's next? What if he were just to slightly annoy the Demon King? And what if he'd respond by killing him? I'm serious, those scenarios are bad. They don't sound like very compelling stories. But anyway, it's clearly no big deal for King Piccolo to end someone so casually like that. And Shu doesn't have anything special about him either. He can pilot his mech, sure, but the controls are basically idiot-proof, and they still have Piano, who's smarter and more loyal. He could learn the controls with ease. And if not, King Piccolo could just birth someone who could. That's what proves to Shu the true existential horror of King Piccolo's existence. But what can he do about it other than hold out hope that he'd keep them alive? Who knows? It's also overwhelming. I leave you on that thought for now. Since this is focusing on our antagonists, this ending is somewhat disparaging when I usually try to leave things off on a happier note. But for whatever it's worth, there is still a lot of strong people left over to fight King Piccolo and his underlings. I said something along these lines in Part 4's ending, but no matter what, as long as good still exists in the world, there's always hope of overcoming such adversities, even if it'll be difficult. That said, take care and don't let the evil space monkey in your closet kill you in your sleep. I'm serious. Don't. Do not. Bye-bye.